New alarm bells ringing tonight on the coronavirus outbreak in this country.
Doctors say the virus is spread through droplets when someone coughs or sneezes.
And I think the business community, it's in their interest that people actually stay home and stop the spread.
For a business that can allow more employees to telecommute, we want you to do that.
Hi, friends. I'm Andy Paul, host of the Sales Enablement Podcast, and I want to encourage you to listen to my brand new special 6-part podcast miniseries titled Selling with Purpose. The team behind Sales Enablement Podcast and I put together this incredible series of inspiring conversations exploring what it means to sell with a mission greater than just hitting your numbers in this era of COVID-19 and beyond. So tune in to hear from world-class enterprise sales leaders and learn how their 6 companies will close $50 billion selling remotely. See how they've supported essential workers with the products and services they need to stay safe and thrive during this time of crisis. Subscribe to Selling with a Purpose now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Guided Selling from RingDNA makes your entire sales team more effective by revealing exactly what reps should do and when to do it. Guided Selling works by transforming sales data into a curated list of prioritized sales actions. So when reps start their day, they'll never again wonder which prospects and accounts or hot inbound leads to reach out to next. Guided Selling even shifts reps' priority in response to real-time buying signals. Finally, even new reps can sell like seasoned ones. Let RingDNA be your guide to success. Learn more at ringdna.com/guided selling. That's ringdna.com/guided selling. Well, then, isn't that one of the disconnects in sales, is that people really perhaps have the wrong sense of mission? So when we look at performance issues, or more broadly across the sales profession, is that you define sales as a service, which I do as well. Are people aiming at the wrong target?
Oh, I think they are. Yeah. You just opened up Pandora's box there with that, because I talk about this in the book. It's not what we sell. It's not even how we sell. It's why we sell, to really steal a line from Simon Sinek. It's the outcome we create. And this is what you have to get focused on.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Sales Enablement Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Paul. Now, that was Mark Hunter, and he's known to many as the Sales Hunter, for which you can thank his parents for that fitting last name. Now, Mark is a well-known speaker, corporate trainer, and author of several books on sales, including High Profit Prospecting. And today he's joining me on this episode of Sales Enablement, which is episode 761, to talk about his new book titled A Mind for Sales. Now, Mark's book is not about whether sellers are born or made. As he suggests, it's not whether you're born with a mind for sales, it's how you develop your own mind for sales. And so today, Mark and I are going to discuss the sales behaviors and mindsets that enable you to become truly customer-centric in your selling, to be more productive in how you use your limited sales time, and most importantly, how to be more effective in your sales interactions with your buyers. But before we get to Mark, I want to let you know that all of us who work to produce this podcast are incredibly grateful for all of you who support us by listening to the show, telling your friends, sharing it on social media, and most importantly, subscribing to the show and giving us your feedback in the form of a rating or a review. So thank you. All right, let's jump into it. Mark, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me on. It's always great to talk with you.
It's always a pleasure to talk with you. And I don't know, you're probably high on the leaderboard in terms of repeat appearances on this show. So not quite like Saturday Night Live where we bring out the custom-made blazer for you, but we'll come up with something.
Can I at least stop by the gift shop and pick up something for free or what?
Next time in New York, swing on by.
You got it. Okay.
All right. So you've got a new book coming out.
Yeah.
Called A Mind for Sales. So first question has to be is, do you have a mind for sales?
Well, wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. That's not a question. Yeah, you know what? What's funny is I never actually come out and answer that very specific question. But I define sales. Sales is helping others see and achieve what they didn't think was possible.
Right. You do that in the book. Yes.
And if you're not willing to do that, then you can't even begin to think that you have a mind for sales.
Well, but then isn't that one of the disconnects in sales, is that people really perhaps have the wrong sense of mission? And so when we look at performance issues, or more broadly across the sales profession, is that you define sales as a service, which I do as well. Are people aiming at the wrong target?
Oh, I think they are. Yeah. You just opened up Pandora's box there with that, because it's not what we sell. I talk about this in the book. It's not what we sell. It's not even how we sell. It's why we sell, to really steal a line from Simon Sinek. Mm-hmm. And it's the outcome. It's the outcome we create. And this is what you have to get focused on. This is what sales is. Sales is about creating outcomes. When I hear salespeople say, well, I couldn't go to work for that company because that company, doesn't make anything decent. And I go, hold it. It's the outcomes. When you focus on the outcomes and how you are helping people, well, we don't sell B2C, we're B2B, business to business. Excuse me, but every business is comprised of people. Mm-hmm. So any way you look at it, we're dealing with people. So really this comes back to another piece, that really, what is sales? It's about creating relationships to understand what your needs are and how best I can help them, how best I can help you. And right now, especially, wow, is that a relevant topic?
Yeah, well, we're recording this obviously in the midst of Corona crisis. And yeah, I agree with you. I think that I was just having this conversation with somebody right before we started recording, which is that they'd asked me what I thought the impact of this was. One of the impacts of the virus crisis would be, the pandemic, would be that things are going to slow down. Right? There's a ripple effect of, because people are affected at so many levels throughout the chain, if you will, the economic chain on this, and the value chain. But the way you connect with people at this point is through service.
That is so key. And the service begins with a relationship. And if we think right now, I think so many people are having sales redefined for them. What does the sales process look like? And I always say, I have to be willing to hear each customer's backstory. Customer's backstory. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got a backstory. And right now, like you said, we're recording this in the midst of COVID. And everybody's got a personal backstory and a business backstory. And just as we were talking before we began, we were both sharing our respective backstories. And what does that do? That allows you to connect, the two of you to connect more. And this is where I think trust and authenticity and integrity matter more than ever. I mean, I've always said that those are three pillars of sales. Mm-hmm. But wow, are they important now?
Yeah, and so let's go back and deconstruct that a little bit. I mean, so people get really uneasy with this term relationship, and I think it's just a matter of semantics for most people. I don't know. I think it was Aristotle, I think, was one that came up with this, is that, there are different types of relationships and friendships. And he termed one, excuse me, combination of labeled and tabled. He labeled it friendship of utility. Isn't that really what you're trying to do with your buyers? It's a functional, utilitarian connection you're making with the person. I mean, there's not a personal and feelings that are involved and so on, but I think people get so confused. They think they're making friends with their prospects, and it's not about making friends. It's about making this human connection.
I think that definition of Aristotle's is spot on. It is. It's truly a here I am going to create a relationship with you, but I'm not going to invite you over for the holidays. Sorry.
Yeah, right.
It's just not going to happen. And don't expect me to send you a cheesy birthday card. Ain't going to happen. But I'm going to create a relationship with you to understand where you're coming from right now. Yeah. Now, it may materialize down the road, but I ain't banking on it.
No, and business isn't based on it.
Right.
And isn't the same thing true with trust, right? I think we go a little too far with the trust thing, is people just have to trust you enough. Really, you have to demonstrate your trustworthiness more than anything else, but they're going to trust you enough. And to the point example you gave before, you're not going to invite somebody over for dinner. I say, yeah, your buyer will trust you enough to make the purchase decision, but they're not going to invite you to come babysit their kids.
Right. See, now, for instance, trust. Let's use Target as an example. I can go to a Target store and I can buy things because I trust Target well enough to have the right item. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go to Target and trust them for open heart surgery.
Right.
That's not the same level of trust. See, I have to trust you to the degree of the purchase. But here's what I found. Trust is a undefinable target between two parties.
And that's why.
Because your level of trust is going to be different than my level of trust.
Right. So I wonder if the conversation's better suited. When I've been thinking about this, and I'm actually going to have a conversation with Charlie Green about this coming up, is aren't we really better suited talking about trustworthiness?
Oh, well, and Charlie Green has built his career around that. Yeah,
right.
Charlie's
what you're really trying to do with your buyers, you're trying to demonstrate that you're worthy of their trust.
Right. Yeah. That's it. Right. Like I said, I'm not asking to babysit your kids.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just asking that there's enough trustworthiness here. And but here's what I found. Somebody asked me the other day, said, so what's the definition of trust? And I said, trust is not what you say, it's what you do. Anybody can say anything, but it's what you do. That's how people are going to define trust.
Well, we can break that down even a little bit too, because if people have read Stephen M. R. Covey's book, The Speed of Trust, he's got a great definition of trust there. He's got 4 trust pillars. And first and foremost among those are motivations. Are your motivations transparent to your buyer? I think this, and Adam Grant talks about this in his book, Give and Take, is that it's okay to be a giver with an agenda, right? As long as you're transparent about it, right? You're upfront.
Right. That's fine.
Mr. Prospect, we're here to help you. And if I'm successful in helping you, I benefit as well.
Right.
That's okay.
Right.
You're upfront. You're being transparent. Right. Unfortunately, too often in sales, though, what happens is, we're here to serve you. We're here to serve you. We're here to serve you. It's the last day of the month. Hey, can we get your order? We'll give you a 10% discount. What are we going to do to get your... suddenly, you've submarined the whole trust issue.
Suddenly, trust is now based purely on economics.
Right. It doesn't mean they won't do business with you, but from that point forward, your conversation is always about the next discount.
Right. That's where we totally lose it right there. Yeah. And boy, do we see that far too often. I mean, why is it that people don't trust car dealers? Because you know that you go in at the end of the month, you're going to get a much better deal than you would at the beginning of the month.
So why do we continue to perpetuate this behavior?
Because we know we're going to get a better deal at the end of the month than the beginning of the month. We're willing to play the game.
Well,
I mean, it's the same thing with department stores.
But change the compensation structure for sellers that, hey, you get paid higher commission rate for orders that close in the first week of the month versus those that close in the last week of the month.
But at the end of the day, the dealership is driven by the manufacturer wanting to hit their monthly numbers.
Right. I'm talking about a B2B company, right? If you're a SaaS company, you've got control over it. Yeah. Change your compensation structure. I'm sorry. Too many conversations today. You can affect that. But you see all these behaviors that come up, and I was asking this guy once, hey, can you determine the ROI on a discount that you give to a buyer at the last week of the month? If you're going to get the order on Friday as opposed to waiting till the next Monday, even though it's a new month, is the ROI worth it? And it's like, they've never thought about it.
No, all they've thought about it is, does it put more commission in their pocket right now?
Yeah. Well, and it really starts with the managers. The managers are the ones that encourage that behavior. I had a customer share with me one time. This was when I was in the consumer packaged goods industry. And she made the comment, and she was a buyer for a major national retailer. Mm-hmm. And she said, I know when every one of my vendors, when their end of the quarter and end of the year is. And what I do is I stop buying X number of weeks ahead of time. Yep.
Because I know the deal is going to get better.
Yeah.
And what I'll do is I won't buy anything until I finally hear from like the VP of sales. Because when I finally get a call from the VP of sales on the last day of the quarter, or whatever, I know I've got the best deal. I mean, give me a break. Give me, and I'm sure the VP of sales thinks he's like, oh, he or she is so cool because, wow, look at this. I just closed this big deal. No. You've trained your customers to behave that way.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's get back to your book. Because let's
get back to the book.
There's some parts of the book that I thought were very interesting, one to get to. And one of the first ones, and we sort of just talked about it, but I'm curious whether you wrote that early in your sales career, you had these experiences. You say, by the third time around, I began to see sales as being about the customer. And quickly the results followed. The more I focused on the customer, the more success I had. So what triggered that?
Well, what triggered it was, I mean, I got fired from my first 2 sales jobs because what happened was I was closing sales and creating expectations with customers that we couldn't deliver on. Now, there are a lot of other issues as to why I got fired, but yeah, I got fired. The third job I was with, and it was a meeting I had with my boss's boss. My boss's boss wanted to work with me, and he pulled me aside. And he really pushed me hard because, in fact, I thought I was going to get fired. I remember this. I remember this day to the T. I can tell you exactly what I was wearing. If I described it,
dark suit, white shirt.
No. It was a brown plaid polyester suit.
Well, I would have fired you too.
Thank you. But hey, it was the 80s, man. It was the 80s. Okay. Anyway. Okay. So anyway, and he challenged me. He said, do you really think you're making a difference with your customers? And he really pushed down hard on me.
Great question.
He said, I don't think you really understand why you're selling. And that simple 15-minute conversation turned my whole career around. I mean, it was one of those, because I'm sitting there thinking the whole time I'm getting fired. And I'm like, I'm toast. And all he was doing was he was saying, because I mean, he knew I could sell, but he had to, and that's when the light really began to go on.
That's the why you're selling.
That's the why. Yeah.
So this customer centricity, we'll call it, is certainly something books have been written about it, and customer centric selling, solutions selling, all these. Why are we having such a hard time still sort of inculcating this, I don't know, is it a behavior or mindset into sellers?
I think it's a mindset that drives behavior. Here's the whole thing. We know we can help you, and we're on a mission to try to close this deal as rapidly as possible. And so we forget the whole reasons as to why you're buying. We forget the whole reasons. We fail to understand, and we fail to create the value. One of the things that drives me nuts is that the majority of no's that we hear are really no's because the customer decides to make no decision. Right? The customer just makes no decision. What does that mean? That's a real indictment on us because we haven't created enough value for you to say yes. Because you know what? We were too busy talking product when we didn't really understand why. Why do you need this? Why does this mean so much to you? Let me give you a very quick example. And it comes out of kind of in the COVID environment. Company sells some manufacturing equipment that will help you reduce the number of employees you need. It's a labor saver. Great. More efficient, everything. Great. Okay. That's a great outcome. But right now it takes on a different outcome because wait a minute. If this allows me to have my employees spaced out better, if this allows me to have fewer employees, guess what? There's less likelihood of me having to deal with COVID on my production line. So really it allows me to keep the production line. See, so the tool is the same, but the outcome and the benefit now has an exponential value. Because now I'm thinking, and this came up in a conversation I was having yesterday with a CEO of a manufacturing firm that's been deemed critical. But he says, I have 15 people on one particular line, and I'm racing to try to find a way to only have 5 or 6 on that line. Because I can't afford to have one of them get it, because then I got to self-quarantine the 14 others.
Right.
And see, so this whole thing is, if we listen to the customer, they will tell us, but we fail to take the time to listen to the customer.
Well, I think this gets back to not teaching sellers what the real mission is.
Bingo. Right.
And so I'll phrase it a different way. So there's been a lot of work done on decision making, and as one guy has written extensively about it, says, look, decisions basically happen in 2 steps. First step is we define what our options are for solving whatever problem we're trying to solve, right? The second phase is we decide who we're going to solve it with. And I think what happens is too often sellers just focused on the who they're going to solve it with part and not on how influencing the buyer's decisions and choices about how they need to solve it. And as long as we're focused on competing on the product and the price, just trying to be the vendor as opposed to trying to be what I call the choice, right? I'm trying to be the choice. You've got multiple choices about how to solve this problem. I want to influence how you make that choice and be the choice.
I think that's so spot on, because we've been taught focus on the ICP, the ideal customer profile. A lot of books have been written on that, and so we think once we have this perfect person, they fit this profile, then they're ready to buy. And we fail to realize in there, no, they just fit the profile of somebody who is likely to buy.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean they line up with the outcome of why they will buy. And that's a big difference.
Well, yeah.
And we have to be willing to sit there and listen. And there's a piece in the book where I sit there and I talk about it in my other book, High Profit Prospecting.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the whole deal of asking questions. And what I always say is, when I've reached a level of confidence with you and you've reached a level of confidence with me, I'll know that when I can ask you a question that you can't answer and I can't answer. But what does that do? Boy, that creates a real deep conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's neat.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I really get to where the outcomes are.
Agree 100%. And it's I think an artifact of how we sell these days, that we say, look, discovery's in this box. We do discovery in this box. And then we stop asking questions. And instead, what you sort of think about is that on every interaction with a buyer, I'm trying to do four things. I'm trying to deepen the connection, deepen my discovery, deepen my understanding, and deepen the value that I give them.
I love it.
And if you do that, then you're saying, look, every time, to your point, we haven't asked enough questions to get to the point where neither of us knows the answer. No matter where your sales team is working from, RingDNA can enable them to be more productive and effective. RingDNA offers a complete platform for remote sales teams that gives reps the tools they need to connect with more prospects and create more opportunities and drive more revenue no matter where they're working from. And managers can get real-time insight they need to coach reps to success. Win more deals from anywhere on the planet with RingDNA. Learn more about how RingDNA helps remote teams at ringdna.com/remote work. That's ringdna.com/remote work.
New alarm bells ringing tonight on the coronavirus outbreak in this country.
Doctors say the virus is spread through droplets when someone coughs or sneezes.
And I think the business community, it's in their interest that people actually stay home and stop the spread.
For a business that can allow more employees to telecommute, we want you to do that.
Hi, friends. I'm Andy Paul, host of the Sales Enablement Podcast, and I want to encourage you to listen to my brand new special 6-part podcast miniseries titled Selling with Purpose. The team behind Sales Enablement Podcast and I put together this incredible series of inspiring conversations exploring what it means to sell with a mission greater than just hitting your numbers in this era of COVID-19 and beyond. So tune in to hear from world-class enterprise sales leaders and learn how their 6 companies will close $50 billion selling remotely. See how they've supported essential workers with the products and services they need to stay safe and thrive during this time of crisis. Subscribe to Selling with a Purpose now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Well, you got to keep asking questions to get that. It doesn't all happen just in one call, and then you check the box and say, we move on.
I think that is so spot on. But see, what it comes back to, because we've been so ingrained the process, and the process is driven by our sales stack. The tools that we have in the sales stack, and we forget that the most important tool we have is our mind. That's a pretty darn good tool.
Yeah,
it really is good if we use it occasionally. Steve Jobs had a great line. Why is it that we hire really brilliant people that are smarter than us, and then we tell them what to do? Right?
Yeah, I hadn't heard that in a long time, but that's a great
Yeah,
saying.
I mean,
But
you
that's endemic to sales, right?
it's not just endemic to sales. I
Why-
think it's endemic to business and
Sure,
everything.
in business, but we're talking about sales here, right? This
Yeah.
is what we do. I was actually just having this conversation on another show before you and I started talking today. It's like everything's so compliance oriented these days, right? We got this process, and we have our tech stack, and there's nothing wrong with the technology. I mean, I use it, but it's like it doesn't control how I sell, right? It supports how I use it in a way. It supports how I sell. But for so many of our young reps, they reach out to me, they listen to the show. It's like frustrated because they feel like they're better than they're performing, but they're being forced to perform within a box.
Right. And following compliance in your sales stack is not going to help you win the President's Award and it gets you to the trip to Hawaii. It's achieving the results.
Yeah. Well, because the top sellers break the rules.
And I find so many people, what they do is they just I know several salespeople right now that are absolutely struggling in what they do because they're trying to follow the process step by step by step by step. And they wonder why they're not successful. Well, because the process was driven as if everything is a blanket statement. If I say this, they say this, they say this. Those are blanket statements. Now, those will really work if you're selling blankets. I don't know about you, I don't know about me, but I've never sold blankets. So I can't deal with blanket statements. But this is what happens. We create this blanket process. And we over systematize the process. I mean, I will never forget at a Dreamforce event a number of years ago where somebody had created an app that when you get ready for the presentation, it will automatically tell you when to call for Uber. Okay, excuse me. Do I really need an app for that? But I mean, think about this. I mean, it's over. I want to have a conversation with you. And that conversation is not going to be driven by a sales stack, tech stack, whatever we want to call it. It's a conversation. Because when I have a conversation with you, because this is the whole thing. A lot of people say, well, B2B decisions are not emotional. Garbage, they are.
Yeah.
They're emotional, supported by fact.
Yeah, that's been established beyond a doubt. We shouldn't even be having that argument anymore. Yeah.
I know we shouldn't, but we do. It's just here's the criteria. And oh man, even government contracts, it's low cost provider. There is still so much emotion written into how the contract was even written to begin with. What's the RFP look like?
Sure.
So let's not kid ourselves. The individual person, I think, in today's environment, plays an even more important role than ever.
On the buying side.
On the buying side.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, but also on the selling side too.
Well, sure.
Yeah. I'm going to use artificial intelligence. I'm going to use every tool I can to help me. But at the end of the day, those tools are there to help me. I'm not there to help them.
Right. I think the buyers think the same thing. I mean, there's certainly examples of artificial intelligence-driven technology that on the side of the buyers, where the buyers, when it comes to the ultimate decision, say, nah, I want to talk to a person.
Right.
And I think that's
right. I mean,
human instinct. That's not going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah. And artificial intelligence, it's been around. I mean, demand forecasting models. I remember those 30 years ago.
Sure.
They've been around for years, and that's basically artificial intelligence. I mean, so
it's gotten way more sophisticated in 30 years.
Right.
Yeah.
It's gotten way more sophisticated. But I mean, these tools have been, they just keep getting better and better. And what does that mean? We have to be continually upping our game as individuals.
Yeah, as humans.
Right.
Yeah, I really think that's the key. Is I think that. And Jeffrey Colvin wrote about this in his book, Humans Are Underrated, is that, one of the biggest impacts based on the research he did and writes about in the book is of this technological age we're in, the AI-driven age we're in, is that we have to become, use the term, more intensively human. And I think that's really the case, right? That's when you're going to stand apart. I mean, you could have, a guided buying system, a guided selling system that's driven by AI, but at some point, the person who makes the decision, if it's not a machine making a decision on the other end, if it's a person making the buy decision, they've got something at stake in that decision. And as long as they have something at stake, then I believe, certainly for the foreseeable future, they're going to talk to a person about that.
Right. And let's not kid ourselves. In a lot of industries, it is machine talking to machine to place the order, to buy, to do all that.
Yeah, supply chain, yep.
Fine. That's routine order, all this sort of stuff. But there's still humans behind that.
Oh, yeah. At some level,
There are
so
still
somebody's
humans.
making the decision what parts get put on the reel, they get put into the assembly line. Yeah.
You got it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've got a question. Sort of, you write a book about 7 metrics that matter in the book. And so if you have one metric in your mind that you could use, that you think that is the best indication of individual sales performance, what do you think that is?
Well, that's that's a loaded question. Thank you. Here's the metric that I think matters the most. What is the percentage of my business that's coming from repeat sales? Now, here's let me run down this road. The only good sale is one that leads to the next sale.
Okay.
This is what got me into trouble early on in my sales career. I wasn't creating repeat sales because I wasn't creating loyal customers. What makes Apple successful? Because they've created an ecosystem that you get sucked in and you are there for it. So a metric that I look to is as a salesperson, is what I'm selling. Are customers coming back and referring me to other people? Are they engaged with me? Am I creating additional revenue off of you long term? That's a key metric. Now, it's a long-term metric, but that is a very valuable metric as to a salesperson's performance. I don't care what the industry is that you're in, it's going to come into play.
So what about a scenario, though, just challenge that for a second, and not challenge, but another spin on it is, take SaaS business, right? Inside sales driven, highly specialized sales role, account executive closes the order, hands it off to customer success. So for that account exec, then what's the metric you'd look at?
Well, the metric is going to be is have I delivered to sales success a client, a customer whose expectations are going to be met, or have I delivered them a client that is going to argue for this, and that because I oversold the expectations? Okay. So what I look for is, what is the speed of the implementation? What is the speed of the execution? We have all seen salespeople who are notorious at closing by delivering expectations that sales success can't deliver on. And what does that do? That creates customer churn. That is a huge, huge piece. So that is one metric. Another metric that I look for is what is the sales that I get now, and what is the upsell potential down the road? Now, there's 2 ways to look at this, because again, this comes back to AE compensation, especially in a SaaS world. Many times what happens is the AE gets compensated on that initial order. Okay. But the problem is, so what does that do? That automatically says the AE doesn't want to close the order until we get to maximum. And I think now I'm going down a side path here.
Sure.
But this creates a problem. This creates a problem because then what happens is the AE will not try to close the deal until he gets 100 seats or 200 seats. When really what he should be doing is saying, hey, let me get 10 seats, prove this, and then we'll expand out. You've been a champion. You were a champion very early on of selling fast. Speed sells. And very, very critical. But see, the compensation models in a lot of SaaS companies works against that, which is really wrong, I think. I just want to get you in, and then I'll scale you up. We'll scale you up from there. I'm sorry. I went down
but it does raise a question though, and which is, we can talk about it or not, which is, I mean, we have a certain structure in a lot of these companies, inside sales companies, with the specialized sales roles, and I think an argument can be made that you should be keeping the account execs involved longer. But let me. I have another question I want to ask you though instead of that one. So when you make a fair time, we'll come back to that one, because it triggered a thought, and I've had this thought reading your book about the metrics that matter and so on. Is it time to get rid of quota as a measure of performance?
Oh, you're not going to. You're never going to.
Why?
Because we are a publicly traded world that we live in, and you have quarterly earnings. So I think you're going to have a hard time getting rid of quota. I'll give you an example. I was working with a company about a year ago, and they did not have quotas. In fact, they did not pay commission. Everybody had a base pay. Let me tell you something. They changed things around. They put in place quota and a bonus incentive commission. Sales went through the roof. Very interesting. What happened? Well, now salespeople could see why they were working, what they were working for. And let's not kid ourselves. I do believe in the scoreboard, and I talk about it in the book in terms of the scoreboard. Should you unplug the scoreboard? Because the scoreboard creates a lot of wonky things, and I get it. Creates distortions. How many times do we sit there and make sales calls just for sake? Well, my boss wants me to make umpteen sales calls per day. I guess I better do it. Wrong. I could care less. Especially if you have a manager who's a spreadsheet jockey or the dashboard junkie. I call him Dashboard Dan, who just looks at the dashboard and says, this is where the team sucks. So there's some arguments there to unplug the scoreboard. And I do. And I talk about unplugging the scoreboard. But I don't believe that you can take away quotas completely. Here's what I find. Top performing people, and again, I talk about it in the book, top performing people don't use the quota as their number. They set something even higher. And if I look at top performing people, they always set their own metrics. They always set their own measurements. And that's why they're top performers. And that goal, that objective, my number for the quarter is purely, I'm just going to be passing through that because my goal is to get even farther. See? So the whole thing is, what are the goals that I'm setting as an individual? And how am I allocating my time to achieve them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you didn't really. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a target. I just don't think quota is the right target.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, I would love to see us not have quotas.
Well, I think having a target. I mean, people may be sick of me talking about this. There's Goodhart's law, which says that when a measure becomes a target, it loses all value as a measure. So when we take something we think is a measure, like performance, quota performance, and make it a target, what happens is people optimize their processes to achieve that end result and artificially perform at lower levels. Whereas we took something like what I advocate, which is how many dollars of revenue do you generate per hour of selling time? Now, there's something that, it's a measure. And we could incent people based on that measure to become more effective in their selling. Yeah. And I bet you, on balance, teams would perform at much higher levels across the board if they had that type of measure and accountability than quota. So I'm a big advocate. Time to deep six quotas.
But probably the advocate that would have, no, I don't even think Jack Welch would have been in favor. Again, I mean, we are so ingrained in the quarterly earnings and so forth. But I know myself.
Well, it's because management's lazy. That's why we keep quota.
Management is lazy. I'm not. I mean, believe me, I would hit quota at the end of week 11, and it was amazing how I shut down. I could easily drive past it. I could have easily driven past it.
Yeah, but I'm saying management's lazy because the reasons you talked about is, we've got these systems in place, and yet, at the execution level, at the individual contributor level, certainly in inside sales, we've adopted these models over the last 10, 15 years, highly specialized sales roles, which I'm a big advocate for. I think it makes a ton of sense. And we've continued to evolve those. And we look at the way we structure management and the way the management's set up, and it hasn't fundamentally changed in the last 100 years.
Oh, I totally agree.
So we're using these. Why are we using this measure quota that came up with 100 years ago when we've completely transformed the way we're executing sales on the other end? It just makes no sense. And so again, I think it's just pure laziness. This is the way it's been. Well, we're changing how we're executing sales. Why don't we change how we actually manage and measure what constitutes performance? Should I get off my soapbox now?
I'll let you stand up in a publicly traded company, Fortune 500 company, and have that discussion with the CEO and the board of directors.
Well, there are companies that are doing that, though, that aren't.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
That are publicly traded. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still it's more of an outlier behavior.
Oh, sure.
I think over time it will become more adopted.
Well, if they get serious about performance, that's the thing, is they're not really serious about performance. I mean, most management teams are just serious about the status quo.
They are. That's what it comes down to. Bingo.
So if you really gave a crap about enhancing performance of your sales team, yeah, you'd tear up your playbook as far as how you manage it and start from scratch.
Yeah.
But you didn't write about that. But that's a topic that's.
But you know what? That would be a cool next book. See, there you go. You've given me an idea for the next book.
Oh, okay. Good.
And I'll even let you write the foreword for it. How's that sound?
Better yet, I'll co-write it with you.
There you go. Okay.
Perfect. All right. I'm putting it in my calendar. So the other thing that was interesting, not the only other thing you talked about, there's a lot of interesting things in the book. People should definitely pick it up and read it, is you talked about the best sales are the ones where the need to negotiate never enters the conversation. And I agree. I'm not sure you and I arrive at that point via the same route, but I agree. So how do you avoid it?
Well, this is where I say sell first and negotiate second, because if I've done such a great job of selling, and selling is the dialogue, that's the discussion. I understand your needs, your outcomes so well, and you know the critical need as to why you need to work with me, that there's no need to negotiate. It just becomes such a no-brainer, because there's also a level of trust that exists, trust for that transaction. Like I said, not trust to babysit your kids, is what we're talking about. But all of those comfort pieces are there that you say, yeah, this just makes sense. Yesterday, I bought a major software package for my company, and I might have been able to negotiate a deal in light of the economy and everything. But it was spot on. It was right on. We had developed such a level of trust. It was there. Fine. Done. Boom.
Right.
Done. No arguments.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about things more complex, because I said I agree at the same point. I think sales should never be negotiating, because first of all, they're horrible negotiators.
Oh yeah.
Is that when you're doing something a little more complex, if you're in there really helping the customer define what it is they need to do to solve the problem, is you've reached agreement on what this solution looks like. And I draw the analogy, it's like a Jenga tower that you built.
Right.
Is that if you want to move this block, it's like, well, yeah, you can do that. I mean, yeah, you don't want, this level of service, fine, you can take that out, but that's going to affect this other part. And so it becomes this finely constructed integral tower, if you will, that if you just remove one piece, the whole thing's going to collapse.
Yeah.
And I found that that's the way you sell that obviates the need for negotiation.
Yeah. I love it.
All right. So I know you need to run. So tell people where they can find the book.
Well, you can find the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, anywhere books are sold. Of course, it's
for video viewers. He's holding it up. A Mind for Sales.
For the video viewers, I'm holding it up. A Mind for Sales. And yeah, it's out in Kindle, Audible, hard copy. And as a gentleman in the UK told me, he said, "Did you just write this book? Because right now this book is so appropriate for the period we are in, because it really is, the message applies to right now, 2020.
All right. Check it out, people. Mark, thank you. And we'll make sure to have you back again before too long.
And I should mention my website, thesaleshunter.com, because that's where I'm at.
The world's best sales name.
Hey, you know what? And it's trademarked, so don't steal it, okay? There you go.
Oh, shoot. I have to change my new website. Okay.
I know. It's fun.
Mark, talk to you soon.
Great selling.
Okay, folks. Thanks for listening. We're so grateful for your support of the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, Sales Enablement with Andy Paul, on iTunes or wherever you listen, and leave us a 5-star rating. You can do that all on your phone in less than a minute as soon as this podcast is over. So thank you so much, and until next time, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. RingDNA is the leading sales enablement platform that uses AI to help scale business growth. Trusted by the top companies across the globe, RingDNA offers a suite of powerful tools for every sales role. The RingDNA dialer radically improves sales productivity and call connection rates, while guided selling helps reps know exactly what to do and when to do it. Conversation AI uses artificial intelligence to surface the most impactful coaching opportunities in real time. So, no matter where your team is working from, the RingDNA platform can help them exponentially increase call connections, opportunities, and revenue. Learn more at ringdna.com/platform. That's ringdna.com/platform.